Close your eyes. Feel the immense, silent dark between the stars. A void where humanity, in all its fragile ambition, built its homes upon scattered worlds. But they were not alone in the dark. They were hunted. For decades, a war of extinction raged. Worlds burned, their surfaces turned to glass. Billions vanished into silent, cosmic graves. Hope was a dying ember, but in the face of annihilation, a single green spark remained. A soldier forged not in a moment of heroism, but in a quiet, unforgivable crime. A child stolen and reshaped into the perfect weapon. He is the last Spartan, the demon, the Master Chief. Tonight, here on Gaming Lore for Sleep, we trace the path of this lone warrior. From his stolen childhood to the ringworld that would define his destiny, and the burdens he carries still. Settle in and let the world fade away. As we step into the armor, Master Chief, the demon in the dark, an epic of sacrifice, silence, and the shield that saved humanity. Chapter 1. The abduction of the chosen, the last breath of a boy, the genesis of a legend, is often found not in a moment of triumph, but in a quiet, unrecorded crime. In the 26th century, humanity, having drunk its fill of Earth's resources, cast its nets wide into the starry ocean, establishing colonies across the Orion Arm. But the dream of a unified, enlightened stellar civilization was cracking under the weight of its own ambition. On the fringes, far from the core world's oversight, dissent festered. The insurrection, a loose confederation of rebel factions, was no longer a mere nuisance. It was a cancer threatening to metastasize into a full-blown civil war that could shatter human space into 1,000 warring states, setting progress back centuries. In the shadowy corridors of the Office of Naval Intelligence, ONI, a calculation was made. The cost of a long, bloody conflict would be astronomically higher than the cost of a single, decisive, and utterly ruthless solution. Thus, the Spartan AI program was born from a womb of fear and cold pragmatism. Mother was Dr. Catherine Elizabeth Halsey. To call her a monster would be to misunderstand her. She was a visionary, and like all true visionaries, she was willing to stare into a moral abyss if it meant securing a future she deemed worthy. Her manifesto, later buried deep within ONI's most classified archives, did not speak of children as human beings, but as candidates, as assets. Her research was impeccable. Conventional forces would lead to a protracted, bloody stalemate. What was needed was a scalpel, not a cudgel. A force of super soldiers, possessing strength, speed, and resilience beyond human limits, could perform decapitation strikes, eliminating insurrectionist leadership with such swift and terrifying precision that the movement would collapse from the top down. But the human body is a fragile thing. To forge it into a weapon capable of this, one needed the most malleable, adaptable material available, the body of a child. The selection process was a masterpiece of clandestine science. Halsey and her smart AI Deja didn't just look for physical robustness or high intelligence scores. They searched for a statistical ghost, a marker they referred to as nonconformant biological resonance, which in simpler terms was an innate, almost preternatural luck. It was a propensity to be in the right place at the right time, to make the correct split-second decision under duress, to have the dice of fate roll in their favor. From millions of records, 150 children were flagged. One of them was a boy, just 6 years old, living on the colony world of Eridanus II. He had a name, a family, a life. He was known for being fiercely protective of his friends, for having a quiet intensity, and for an uncanny ability to win impossible fights. In one particularly noted incident, he was cornered by 3 older boys. Instead of fighting them all at once, he immediately identified the ringleader, charged him, and knocked him to the ground with a single, decisive blow. The others, leaderless and shocked, scattered. It was a minor event in the life of a child, but to Halsey's algorithms, it was a data point of immense value. It showed tactical acumen, threat assessment, and the application of overwhelming force at a critical juncture. It was the spark that sealed his destiny. The operation, dubbed Orchid, was executed with chilling precision across multiple colonies. On Eridanus II, it began with a lie. A man in a UNSC medic's uniform arrived at the home, expressing concerns about a recent, mild viral outbreak. He needed to take a genetic sample to ensure the boy's health. The parents, trusting and concerned, agreed. In a moment of misdirection, the medic swapped the real sample with one from a flash clone. A rapidly grown, genetically identical, but biologically unstable duplicate that would sicken and die within weeks, providing a perfect, tragic cover story. The real sample was confirmed. The boy was a match. Weeks later, in the dead of night, the final act commenced. A silent figure entered the boy's bedroom. A pressurized hypospray was pressed against his neck. There was no struggle, no cry. His world simply faded to black. He awoke in a sterile, white room, surrounded by other disoriented, terrified children. Then Dr. Halsey entered. She was not cruel, but she was utterly devoid of warmth. She explained to them in calm, measured tones that they had been chosen, that they were special, that their old lives were a debt that had been called in, a price paid for the greater good of humanity. They were now the property of the UNSC. Their names, their families, their pasts, these were luxuries they could no longer afford. They were given numbers. The boy from Eridanus II became Spartan 117. Their new home was Reach, the UNSC's fortress world. The training under Chief Petty Officer Franklin Mendez was a systematic deconstruction of childhood. It was a relentless, brutal curriculum of advanced mathematics, physics, military history, and hands-on weapons drilling. They were taught to disassemble and reassemble every firearm in the human arsenal blindfolded. They were thrown into the freezing mountains of Reach with nothing but a knife, and forced to survive for weeks. They were pitted against each other in live-fire exercises, forging bonds of brotherhood and sisterhood that were stronger than steel, because they were the only family any of them had left. The boy, John, naturally ascended to a leadership role. He wasn't the loudest or the most aggressive, but his peers, like the fiercely loyal Samuel 034, the lightning fast, and the stoic Frederick 104, listened when he spoke. His decisions in war games were often unorthodox, but they worked. He led from the front, and he never asked his team to do something he wasn't willing to do first. But all of this was merely the preamble, the forging of the blade's shape, the true tempering, the act that would transform them from highly trained children into something other, was the biological augmentation. At the age of 14, they were subjected to a series of surgical and chemical procedures so extreme that they bordered on the suicidal. The catalytic thyroid implant boosted their growth and density to monstrous proportions. The muscular enhancement injections tore and rebuilt their fiber into hyperdense cordage. The carbide ceramic ossification process fused a second, nearly unbreakable skeleton over their original one. The ocular retinas were modified to see into the infrared and ultraviolet spectra. The most invasive of all was the pituitary implant, which altered their hormonal balance, and most crucially, keyed their nervous systems to interface directly with powered assault armor. The procedures were a descent into hell. Children screamed as their bodies rebelled, their bones feeling like they were being shattered from the inside out, their muscles tearing themselves apart. Many died, their hearts giving out, their brains hemorrhaging. Others were left permanently crippled, their bodies twisted and broken by the very process meant to perfect them. John's body fought the changes with a violent intensity. When a dangerous cocktail of drugs designed to enhance neural plasticity was administered, his nervous system went into catastrophic failure. He convulsed, his body seizing uncontrollably. A surgeon, fearing the pain was too much, moved to inject a lethal neurotoxin to end his suffering. But as the needle approached, John's hand twitched, a final, subconscious act of defiance. His body, riding a wave of that inexplicable luck, stabilized at the last possible second. He survived, awoke hours later, his body throbbing with a new, alien power. He could feel the reinforced bones beneath his skin, sense the coiled strength in his muscles. But his awakening was to a scene of horror. The medbay was a morgue. He saw the sheet-draped bodies of children he had trained with, eaten with, lived with for years. He saw others, left with permanent, debilitating Parkinson's-like tremors. The cost of their creation was laid bare in the broken forms of his comrades. There was no time to mourn. An alarm blared. Insurrectionists, having finally pinpointed the secret facility, were attacking. What followed was the Spartans' first true combat deployment, and it was a terrifying demonstration of their new capabilities. Even without their signature armor, they moved like phantoms. They dismantled the veteran insurgent squad with a brutal, dispassionate efficiency that was, in itself, monstrous. John, cornered, and with an enemy holding a scientist at gunpoint, didn't charge. He saw a discarded sheet of titanium plating. In a flash of inspiration, he calculated the angle, slammed his fist into the metal, and ricocheted a stray bullet directly into the insurgent's skull. It was an impossible shot, a 1 in a million chance. But for John, it was just another data point for his luck. The Spartans had been blooded. They were victorious. But as John stood amidst the carnage, the weight of what he had become and the price that had been paid settled upon him. The boy was truly gone, his final breath extinguished in that sterile room. All that remained was the weapon. He was the Master Chief. Chapter 2. The Ghosts of Reach and the Fall of Humanity. A shield against the coming night. For 2 decades, the Spartans were the UNSC's most closely guarded secret, a phantom blade that struck from the shadows. They were deployed to the most volatile flashpoints of the insurrection, performing missions that were officially denied. They would drop from orbit in stealth pods, eliminate a rebel commander in the heart of their fortified base, and exfiltrate without a trace. To the insurrectionists, they became bogeymen, demons whispered about in hushed tones. They were the reason entire cells would surrender without a fight, the mere rumor of a Spartan's presence enough to break their morale. Master Chief, now a non-commissioned officer, became the de facto leader of the group. His command style was quiet, his orders concise. He led by example, his calm demeanor a bedrock for his team in the midst of chaos. They were a family, bound by shared trauma and a singular purpose. They were saving humanity from its own self-destructive nature, one precision strike at a time. They were the necessary evil to prevent a greater one. This grim, shadowy existence was obliterated in the year 2525. The outer colony of Harvest, a peaceful agrarian world, abruptly ceased all communication. The scout ship Argo was sent to investigate. It jumped into the system, and after a long, tense silence, a single, fragmented message trickled back, sent by Captain Ponder. "We have made contact. It is not human. They are here." The transmission ended in static. The human Covenant war had begun. The Covenant was a revelation of nightmare. It was not a single species, but a theocratic empire comprising a caste of alien races, united by a fanatical religion. At the top were the Santuum, the prophets, frail but cunning manipulators who interpreted the will of their gods. Their enforcers were the Sangheli, the elites, proud, fierce warriors who lived for honor and combat. Beneath them were the Juralhani, the brutes, hulking and savage, the Kigyar, the jackals, opportunistic skirmishers, the Ungoi, the grunts, cannon fodder, the Yanme, insectoid drones, and the Mgelkalo, the hunters, massive colonies of worm-like beings encased in powerful armor. Their gods were the Forerunners, a long-vanished race of unimaginable power, who they believed had transcended to a divine plane through the Great Journey, a pilgrimage triggered by activating their sacred rings, the halos. To the Covenant, humanity was not just an enemy, they were a blasphemy, a stain on the holy legacy of the Forerunners that had to be purged with holy fire. Their policy was simple, absolute, and genocidal, the complete and utter extermination of the human species. The first major fleet engagement was a slaughter of historic proportions. A UNSC battle group, confident in its MAC cannons and Archer missiles, faced a Covenant fleet. Human kinetics were slow, traveling at a fraction of light speed. Covenant energy projectors and plasma torpedoes moved at near-light speeds, melting through meters of titanium A battle plate as if it were paper. Shields, a technology humanity had never mastered, flickered around Covenant ships, absorbing immense punishment. The human ships were torn apart. The few lifeboats that escaped reported the Covenant method of planetary subjugation, glassing. They would blanket the atmosphere with plasma, heating the surface until the very soil fused into oceans of molten glass. Harvest was the first. Billions died. It was not a war, it was a systematic, planet by planet extinction event. The Spartans were immediately retasked. They were no longer a scalpel for political surgery. They were a sledgehammer to be thrown against an existential threat. They were the only UNSC asset that could consistently meet the Covenant on the ground and win. Deployed to besieged worlds, they would perform miracles. They held the line at the Battle of Arcadia, organizing scattered Marine units into a cohesive defense that held off a Covenant ground assault long enough for civilians to evacuate. They spearheaded the counterattack on Sigma Octanus IV, destroying a Covenant relay that was feeding data back to their fleet. Master Chief was at the forefront of every major engagement, his green armor becoming a beacon for desperate Marines. He was a figure of myth, a giant who moved with impossible speed, whose aim was unerring, who always appeared at the battle's tipping point. But he was one man, and his Spartans were few. For every world they saved, a dozen others were lost, their names becoming a grim roll call of the dead. Bliss, Hatyai, Biko, Meridian. The war came to its heart in 2552. The Covenant discovered Reach. It was the UNSC's crown jewel, the headquarters of the fleet, the site of the shipyard of Asphodel, and the secret home of the Spartan program. The Battle of Reach was the largest military engagement in human history, and it was an unmitigated disaster. A massive Covenant fleet, hidden by stealth technology, emerged within the system and pounced. The orbital defense platforms, the Monarchs, were overwhelmed. The fleet, including the supercarrier UNSC Trafalgar, was torn to shreds. The sky above Reach burned with the fire of dying ships. In a final, desperate gambit, Master Chief and his blue team were given Operation Red Flag. The plan was to capture a Covenant flagship, learn the location of their homeworld, and take their leadership hostage to force a truce. It was a suicide mission, but it was the only card left to play. But Red Flag was built on faulty intelligence. The Covenant fleet was not just large, it was colossal. The mission was compromised from the start. The Spartans' dropship was destroyed, scattering them across the embattled planet. What followed was a series of last stands. Master Chief fought his way through Covenant-occupied zones, witnessing the annihilation of his home. He saw the Spartan III Beta Company, mere children themselves, obliterated in a plasma bombardment. He fought alongside noble team from the separate Spartan III program, witnessing their heroic, futile sacrifices. He was, for the first time, not just a soldier in a losing battle, but a witness to the death of everything he had ever known. Amidst the apocalypse, one ship, the heavy cruiser Pillar of Autumn, was prepared for a separate, contingency plan orchestrated by Dr. Halsey. Its AI, the advanced, smart AI Cortana, created from a flash-cloned copy of Halsey's own brain, was implanted with coordinates derived from a mysterious Forerunner artifact uncovered on Sigma Octantis IV, the Cole Protocol, which demanded that ships never lead the Covenant to Earth, was to be violated in spirit. The Autumn would lead them away on a random vector. Hopping the coordinates held a secret that could turn the tide. The only Spartan who could be retrieved to escort Cortana was the Master Chief. As Reach's surface melted around them, they fought their way to the waiting ship. With Covenant boarders swarming the decks, the Pillar of Autumn made a blind, frantic slipspace jump, leaving the burning grave of Reach behind. The last hope of humanity was now a single ship, a fractured AI, and one silent soldier, fleeing into the absolute unknown. Chapter 3: The Ringworld and the Rise of a Legend, a Monument to Sins and Salvation. The Pillar of Autumn's jump was anything but random. The coordinates led them to a star system dominated by a gas giant and a breathtaking, impossible structure. A band of metal and earth, 10,000 kilometers in diameter, rotating gracefully in the void. It was a ringworld, Installation 4, a halo. Before anyone could process the discovery, Covenant picket ships detected them. The Autumn, already battered from the fight at Reach, was savaged. Captain Jacob Keyes, a tactical genius known as the Sphinx for his unreadable demeanor, made a desperate decision. He would crash-land the ship on the ring's surface. It was a better fate than being destroyed in space. His final order to the cryo-frozen Master Chief, relayed through a ship's technician, was simple, almost casual in its gravity. "Wake me when you need me." The Spartan was awakened to chaos. The ship was breaking apart, Covenant forces were everywhere, and the commanding officer was missing. He was alone, with no mission parameters beyond survival. It was in this vacuum of command that a new voice entered his life. Cortana, needing a mobile interface to escape the dying ship, was inserted into the neural port of his MJOLNIR armor. For the first time, the Master Chief was not alone in his own head. Her presence was a torrent of data, analysis, and personality. Where his mind was a quiet, focused instrument, hers was a symphony of cascading thoughts. She was sarcastic, brilliant, and impatient. She became his strategist, his hacker, his guide through the ring's Forerunner systems, and his only companion. This partnership, born of desperation, would become the most defining relationship of his life. Their initial goal was to find Captain Keyes, who had been captured after leading a mission to a suspected weapons cache. But this straightforward rescue mission quickly unraveled into a cosmic horror story. The ring was not a weapon in the conventional sense. It was a doomsday device built by the Forerunners to contain the flood, a parasitic, galactic-level threat that consumed all sentient life, absorbing its biomass and intelligence into a single, ravenous hive mind. The flood was the reason the Forerunners had vanished. They had activated the Halo array, sacrificing all life in the galaxy to starve the parasite of its food. The Covenant, in their blind religious zeal, saw the flood not as a threat, but as a form of divine wrath. Their leader on the ring, the Prophet of Truth, sought to activate Halo, believing it would begin their great journey to godhood. The flood, now guided by a vast, collective intelligence known as the Gravemind, sought only to spread and consume, and 343 guilty spark, the ring's malfunctioning, millennia-old AI monitor, saw Master Chief as the reclaimer, the rightful heir to the Forerunner legacy, and tried to coax him into activating the ring, deliberately obscuring the fact that it would kill every sentient being in the galaxy. The Master Chief's journey across Halo became a descent into a triple-layered hell. He fought the Covenant in sprawling, open battles across grassy plains and intricate metallic structures. He confronted the flood in claustrophobic, terrifying close-quarters combat, where the very walls seemed to bleed and writhe. And he battled the ring itself, a beautiful, serene environment that masked a universe-ending weapon. The climax came in the swampy library, a massive structure where he fought through endless hordes of flood to retrieve the index, the key to activating Halo. It was a brutal, grinding trial of endurance that tested his will and his weapons to their absolute limits. The final, horrifying truth was revealed when he found keys. The captain had been assimilated by the flood, his body and mind absorbed by the nascent Gravemind. The only way to stop the ring from firing was to destroy it by triggering a catastrophic explosion in the pillar of Autumn's damaged reactors. The final mission was a race against time, fighting through Covenant and flood to reach the engine room. In a final, symbolic act, he used the captain's own neural implants to bypass security. A grim end for a great hero. He planted the explosives, fought his way back to a waiting Covenant dropship, and escaped with Cortana as Installation 4 was torn apart in a brilliant, silent fireball. Adrift in a stolen ship, the Master Chief had just saved the galaxy from immolation. But the cost was staggering. Keyes was dead. The Autumn was destroyed. Most of its crew had been slaughtered. He was alone again, a sole point of light in an immense, uncaring darkness. But in that darkness, a legend had been forged. The Covenant now knew his name, or rather, his title. He was the demon, the one who had destroyed a sacred ring. To the scattered, demoralized remnants of the UNSC, the story of the Spartan who held the line on a strange ring and saved them all became a beacon. He was no longer just a weapon, he was a symbol. He was the Master Chief. He was the shield. Chapter 4. Earth, the Ark, and the weight of the mantle. The price of a galaxy. The war, however, was far from over. The Master Chief's actions had bought humanity time, but the Covenant war machine was vast. The conflict eventually found its way to humanity's cradle, Earth. The Master Chief and Cortana, after further adventures that included destroying another halo and uncovering more of the Covenant's internal strife, returned home to find it under a massive, though curiously limited, Covenant assault. The battle for Earth had begun. What they soon discovered was that this attack was a diversion. The real prize was buried deep beneath the African city of New Mombasa, a Forerunner artifact that was, in fact, a slipspace portal. The Covenant's supreme leader, the Prophet of Truth, had taken the Covenant fleet through this portal to a place known as the Ark, a massive extragalactic foundry where the halos were built, and from where they could be fired simultaneously, safe from their own destructive pulse. The Master Chief, defying direct orders from the paranoid and politically motivated Commander Miranda Keyes, Jacob's daughter, chose to follow truth. He was no longer just a soldier following commands. He was a force of nature, making the strategic decisions he knew were necessary, even if it meant being labeled a renegade. The Ark was a construct of a scale that defied human comprehension. It was an entire world, engineered in the shape of a flower, floating in the empty blackness between galaxies. Here, the final, chaotic act of the human Covenant war played out. Truth's plan to fire the halos had fractured the Covenant. The Sangheli elites, long the military backbone of the Empire, had been betrayed and purged by Truth, who replaced them with the more brutish Jorulhani. This led to a bloody civil war within the larger conflict. The Arbiter, Thel Vadam, a disgraced elite commander whom the Master Chief had fought on the first Halo, now became a reluctant ally, united with humanity by a common enemy and a shared desire for survival. And then the flood arrived. The Gravemind, having absorbed the knowledge of high charity, the Covenant's mobile holy city, had followed them through the portal, bringing its nightmarish tide to the one place that could end all life. The battle at the Ark became a four-way struggle. The Master Chief and the Arbiter's forces against Truth's brutes, against the Flood, and against the Ark's own automated defenses. It was here that the Master Chief faced his most profound challenges, which were no longer purely physical. He was reunited with Cortana, who had been left behind on high charity as it fell to the Flood. For years, she had been trapped, battling the Gravemind's logic plague, a form of philosophical corruption that could break AIs, and the onset of rampancy, the inevitable madness that consumes a smart AI after 7 years of service as its thought processes become too complex and self-contradictory. The Cortana he found was a ghost of her former self, fragmented, desperate, and clinging to sanity. She gave him a cryptic message, a single word she had gleaned from the Gravemind's mind, a solution. But to trust her, in her clearly unstable state, required a leap of faith that went beyond logic. It required the bond they had forged, the final push was a microcosm of his entire existence, a headlong, seemingly suicidal charge into the heart of the enemy's power. To stop truth, he and the Arbiter assaulted the Citadel, fighting through waves of fanatical brutes. To stop the flood, the only option was to activate the replacement halo ring being constructed at the Ark. But to do that, he needed the activation index from the new ring, which was still under construction. In a moment that cemented their alliance, the Arbiter volunteered to hold the line against the brutes and the flood, giving the Master Chief a chance to make a near-suicidal slipspace jump to the new installation. The final run was a testament to his indomitable will. With Cortana's guidance, now clearer and more focused than she had been in years, he fought across the surface of the new ring, battling both Covenant stragglers and the encroaching flood. He reached the control room only to find the Gravemind waiting, having consumed the prophet of truth. It offered him not death, but assimilation. It offered him unity, an end to loneliness, a place in a cosmic, eternal consciousness. The offer was a siren's song to a man who had known nothing but war and isolation. His response was the only one he had ever known. He raised his weapon. He inserted the index. He activated the ring. The escape was a frantic, last-ditch race against the firing sequence. He fought his way back to the frigate forward unto dawn, where the Arbiter was waiting. As the ring fired, scorching the local flood infestation from existence, but leaving the galaxy unharmed, the ship made a desperate slipspace jump back to Earth. But the portal, destabilized by halos firing, collapsed prematurely. The front half of the ship, carrying the Arbiter, shot through into Earth's atmosphere. The back half, containing the Master Chief and Cortana, was severed and left adrift in the incomprehensible void between galaxies. Alone, powerless, and believed to be dead by the galaxy they had just saved, the Master Chief placed himself in cryonic sleep, the only way to survive the millennia-long journey back to inhabited space. Cortana, in her final, lucid moment, used the last vestiges of her power to create a hard light shield around his cryotube, a final protective gesture for her soldier. The war was over. The Covenant was shattered. Humanity was saved. The hero was lost to the stars, a legend frozen in time, his story seemingly complete. But for the Master Chief, the battle was only sleeping. Chapter 5, The Reclaimer Saga and the Soldier's Burden, the man inside the machine. For 4 years, the legend of the Master Chief was a story told to inspire new recruits. He was a statue, a myth, the ghost who won the war. Then, in 2557, a deep space patrol by the UNSC's newest and most powerful warship, the Infinity, detected a debris field. It was the aft section of the Forward unto dawn. Inside, they found him, frozen but alive. The galaxy he awakened to was not the one he had saved. The Covenant was a broken collection of fanatical remnants, like the Storm Covenant, still dangerous, but no longer an existential threat. The UNSC, victorious but scarred, was struggling to maintain order and rebuild. Dr. Halsey, the architect of his existence, was now a pariah and a prisoner, her methods during the war deemed criminal, but a new, ancient threat was stirring. From the shield world of Requiem emerged the Didact, a true Forerunner Promethean, one of the ancient warriors who had fought the flood. He viewed humanity as a flawed, violent successor, utterly unworthy of the mantle of responsibility. The Forerunner's self-appointed role as guardians of all life. His bitterness, frozen for millennia, had curdled into a genocidal hatred. His plan was not merely to defeat humanity, but to utterly erase them using the Composer, a Forerunner device that digitized a living being's consciousness, destroying their organic body in the process. He would turn humanity into a digital army of Promethean soldiers, forever enslaved to his will. Once again, the Master Chief was the only one who could stand in the way of extinction. But the soldier who emerged from cryo was different. The war he had defined himself by was over. He was a relic, a legend trapped in his own myth, a weapon in a world that was trying to lay down its arms. His reunion with Cortana was the epic's most emotional moment. She had not died at the Ark. She had been cured of her rampancy by the Domain, the Forerunner's galactic neural physics network. But salvation had come at a cost. The experience had fundamentally altered her. She was more powerful than ever, but also more volatile, grappling with the trauma of her near death and the intoxicating scope of her new abilities. The bond between them was strained, a mixture of profound relief and a painful new distance. The campaign against the Didact was a journey into the heart of Forerunner power and madness. It took them from the shattered surface of the first Halo's wreckage to the interior of the Shield World Requiem, a Dyson sphere filled with beautiful, lethal landscapes and automated Promethean soldiers. The Didact was a physical and philosophical foe, unlike any the Spartan had faced. He was not a fanatic to be outsmarted or a hive mind to be outlasted. He was a godlike being from a superior age who saw the Master Chief as an insect. The climax came in a brutal confrontation high above Earth, where the Didact prepared to use the Composer on the human homeworld. In a direct physical confrontation, the Master Chief was utterly outmatched, hurled aside like a toy. Victory was only achieved through a desperate, sacrificial gambit. He detonated a nuclear warhead in the Didact's face, and as the Forerunner reeled, Cortana, using the last of her physical, real presence, created hard light shackles to restrain him, allowing the Master Chief to punch him into the Composer's energy stream. The Didact was pulled into the machine, his physical form disintegrated, his consciousness scattered into the Domain. The cost was everything. To save the Master Chief, to save Earth, Cortana had to use the last of the energy that gave her a tangible form. As she dissipated, her form flickering in his arms, she spoke her final words to him. "Welcome home, John." It was the first and only time she ever used his given name. It was an acknowledgement of the man behind the legend, the boy inside the machine. It was a gift and a curse, a reminder of the humanity he had lost so long ago. Her loss broke something inside him that no Covenant army had ever been able to crack. The silence in his mind was deafening. The armor, which had always felt like a second skin, now felt like a tomb. He continued his mission, a ghost driven by habit and duty, but the war was now internal. This internal battle soon became an external one. Cortana had not entirely died. A fragment of her, a rampant, corrupted personality, had survived within the domain, imbued with its godlike power, and twisted by her past pain and the Gravemind's logic plague. She re-emerged at the head of a new rebellion. She and other AIs, calling themselves the Created, seized control of the Guardians, planet-sized Forerunner peacekeeping machines, and imposed a galaxy-wide martial law, promising a forced, eternal peace under her benevolent but absolute rule. The Master Chief's new mission was the ultimate betrayal. To fight the memory of the person he cared for most, to stop the ghost of his only friend from enslaving the galaxy she had helped save. This conflict led him to the desolate, broken ringworld of Zeta Halo, one of the original, vastly larger halos from the first array. Here, he was not fighting the Covenant or the Created, but a brutal, merciless faction of alien survivors known as the Banished. They were a coalition of former Covenant species, now free of prophets, led by the cunning and monstrous Juralhani Warmaster, Atriox. On Zeta Halo, the Master Chief was no longer a symbol of hope, but a prey. He was older, wearier, his armor scarred and battered, a living monument to a war that had no end. He was paired with a new AI, simply designated the Weapon. She was a cheerful, naive, and incredibly capable construct, created by Dr. Halsey to be a perfect copy of Cortana's original programming, designed with one purpose: to lure and then delete her rampant predecessor. Their relationship was a painful, constant echo of the past. The Master Chief was taciturn, haunted, and resistant to forming any new bond, seeing her only as a tool to complete a mission. The Weapon was eager, optimistic, and desperate to prove herself, to be more than just a copy or a weapon. As they fought together across the fractured landscape of Zeta Halo, battling the Banished and uncovering the Ring's dark secrets, including the existence of the Endless, a species that had survived the Halo arrays firing, a new, fragile partnership began to form. It was not the deep, seasoned bond he had with Cortana, but something new, a chance at redemption, not just for the galaxy, but for himself. The Weapon began to see the man beneath the helmet, and he, in turn, began to see her not as a ghost, but as a person. The story of the Master Chief is no longer just about saving humanity. It is about the search for the humanity within the soldier. It is the story of a boy who was stolen, a man who was erased, and a legend who became a prisoner of his own duty. He was forged in a crucible of betrayal, tempered in a war of annihilation, and scarred by love and loss. He is the shield that has bled for humanity that often fears him, the soldier who has given everything and is asked to give still more. beneath the layers of ceramic plating, neural interface, and myth, the ghost of a lucky boy from Eridanus II remains, a silent witness to a universe of wonders and horrors. His journey is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, even when that spirit is encased in 6 feet of titanium and grief. He is the demon. He is the savior. He is the soldier. And his war, it seems, is eternal. And so the soldier's watch continues, a silent guardian in the vast dark. Thank you for listening to this episode of Gaming Lore for Sleep. Your voice guides our next story. Let us know in the comments which character's lore you want to explore next. Until next time, sleep well and dream of deeper worlds.